Italian sub analysis rolls on, and today we're tackling Jimmy John's. I want to see how Jimmy John's Italian sub stacks up against any other out there. And we're going into deep analysis. We're going to break it down, everything from the value all the way to the bread, to the meats and everything on it. And that's starting right now. Let me back up real quick. I've assembled and consumed a lot of Italian subs in my day, and I've been making my way around to break them down for you on YouTube. Chains could be just as important as mom and pop shops, depending on where you are. So let's break down what's going on at Jimmy John's nationally. One of the things I'm having trouble breaking down in terms of exactly what to order, I want to kind of compare apples to apples in terms of Italian subs, and Jimmy John's has a few different ways that they assemble their sandwiches, and they have cute little names for it, and they've rearranged their menu over the years. Right now, I'm just having trouble deciding between, I got to take it to the notes here. There are three basic sandwiches that I would consider like an Italian sub. There's the spicy East Coast Italian. That one seems like it's more than what I'm bargaining for. Double salami, double capicola, provolone, Jimmy peppers, which are like vinegar peppers, cherry peppers, oil, vinegar, lettuce, onion, tomato, and mayonnaise. Then there's the Italian nightclub, salami, capicola, ham, provolone, onion, lettuce, tomato, mayo, oil and vinegar, oregano, basil. That sounds a little bit more like what a traditional Italian sub that you would get at like a local market would be. And then there's another one, the Vito, salami, capicola, provolone, onion, lettuce, tomato, oil and vinegar, and oregano and basil. I don't know, the Italian nightclub sounds a little bit better. In terms of this particular Jimmy John's, actually when they opened, I got to know the guy who owns it, so I'm no stranger to Jimmy John's. In fact, a little bit over a decade ago, I did like a parody of Guy Fieri, and I used Jimmy John's bread in that. I really like Jimmy John's bread. Let's get in there, let's see what the sub is like, and how it stacks up to your neighborhood place. It took me longer to decide how to order than it did for them to make it. Back to the car. All right, so here we are with our sub. My total came to over $13, and I ended up also getting a fountain soda. That to me is a little steep for like this chain sub experience. I don't know what's going on with the pricing. It honestly feels a little bit light too. I can already tell based on what I'm feeling here that this is going to be a little bit of a letdown in terms of like value here, just compared to some of the really amazing Italian subs we've had recently on the channel. That said, like I mentioned before, Jimmy John's has never let me down as far as flavor goes, as far as a chain place. So let's dig right in and let's see kind of what we got here. It's packed kind of tight. The thing about this is it feels kind of heavy, but it's short. I don't remember Jimmy John's being this short. It's been quite a while since I've gone to Jimmy John's, but I don't know what changes they've made or whatever it is, but I had to ask them to cut it. I always like for this thumbnail snapshot to get a cross section. They did, and I think we're gonna be making a mess. So I got my napkins. We're ready to go here. And here we go. So here's the first half, and here's the second half. So customer service wise, these guys deserve an A. They're always nice and fast, freaky fast, so they say is their kind of catchphrase. With my indecision between the three subs, the young lady at the counter was nice to humor me about it. I can already see, it seems like maybe the cold cuts are sliced ahead. I know that because I saw them assemble it, but let's go. Very interesting. One of the things that happens a lot with Jimmy John's sandwiches is as you eat it, the way they kind of assemble it, it squeezes out the back. I'm gonna try to get another bite where that doesn't happen so I can taste some of the meats and stuff and everything all together here. So I have quite a lot to break down here at the home studio, and I'm gonna do some annotations and we're gonna actually dig really deep into this one. But just right off the top, I love how nicely thin all these cold cuts are sliced. It makes for a much nicer eating experience. There is kind of a mixed bag of quality of ingredients that I think kind of detracts from the sandwich a little bit, but then you also have their homemade bread, which we need to talk about as well. As far as value, I'm gonna tell you right now, this was probably around $10, given the fact that my total was over 13, and I know that the fountain drink, which is crazy, $2.99, I'm gonna say that the sub in terms of the size probably isn't worth it. There are some merits and things we should discuss, you know, before we just dismiss it completely. So let's take it back to the home studio. I'm gonna take a few more bites on my drive home because I'm starving. And if you enjoy this kind of analysis video, make sure you hit this video with a thumbs up and subscribe so more like this comes up in your feed. The first thing I need to say about Jimmy John's is it has kind of that cute little name, Italian nightclub, and I think that's kind of more of a play off of like the Jersey Shore nightclub kind of life than actual Italian nightclub life. In terms of like European nightclubs versus American nightclubs, I think there's a little bit of a difference in understanding in terms of how those are set up. Anyway, To me, as far as Jimmy John's, the draw to go there was always their bread. They kind of bring their bread in-house and then they bake it. They have like these little ovens. It comes par baked and then they finish off the bake at the beginning of service every day. And then if they need to, they end up baking off more. They also have a sliced bread and they have wraps, and you could also do lettuce wraps. And to me, all that stuff is all well and good. The baked Italian bread is, for me, the best bang for the buck. And as far as their equipment on site, you can actually see their entire kitchen setup and you can see their slicers. And I think what they end up doing at the beginning of service is they lay everything out and they slice everything ahead so that they're not picking up meats and doing it at the time of order for higher throughput, so they could be freaky fast. While we're talking about positives at Jimmy John's, the one thing I have to say is, as far as the meats, the quality is probably above average. It's probably not the greatest meat that you can get out there, but in terms of what it is, it tastes pretty good. And they do a really amazing job slicing it kind of nice and thin. While I was taking the B-roll here to show you guys exactly what's going on with each individual meat, I thought it was noteworthy that they actually did a really good job. Like, you could almost see through some of these cold cuts. And that's not easy to do, especially when you're preparing ahead. In terms of what they're using, I don't want to speculate on brands, but the taste is very familiar. I almost feel like what they probably do, just like Jersey Mike's, is they subcontract to another purveyor and they put their own label on it, because the salami tastes very familiar. The ham capocollo looks very familiar and tastes very familiar. The ham here, honestly, is a little different than most hams that I've seen, and the provolone has a little bit of funk, as opposed to like anywhere else where you get provolone on a sandwich and it's kind of tasteless. And that's definitely something that's noteworthy here. When you bite into this sandwich, you taste the provolone. And this isn't even one of those sandwiches where it advertises 2x. I can't imagine what that would be. The flaw on this sandwich, though, is the dressings. As far as what they say is on it, they have mayo, oil and vinegar, and oregano-basil. Now, I saw them actually applying the oil and vinegar, but I swear up and down, I don't taste much oil and vinegar when I bite into this sub. Furthermore, if they're adding herbs like oregano and basil, you barely taste it. You really only get the mayonnaise as far as the actual like condiment on the sandwich. And to me, I actually would argue that an Italian sub should have one layer of mayo on it, understanding that it's not an Italian construct, it's an Italian-American construct, and mayonnaise is very Americana. It's a little disappointing that I really didn't get much oil and vinegar or herbs, even though I decided I wanted this kind of just off the menu. One thing this definitely needs is some hot peppers, so I feel like if I did go back there, I would get the hot peppers to kind of complete the condiments there. But one thing I have to say in terms of what they're putting, they put shredded lettuce, which is definitely a win as far as Italian sub. And the tomatoes they use, even though we're kind of coming out of winter right now, and we're entering the deep spring, and we'll be in summer in a couple weeks, these were super fresh and super flavorful, and it's really amazing to me. I don't know how they do that year round, because one of my favorite things to get at Jimmy John's is like turkey, mayo, lettuce, tomato, because the tomato to me in that particular matrix adds so much to it. So here at Jimmy John's on the Italian sub, I think the tomato is actually very good, as opposed to a couple of tomatoes that we got, albeit in the dead of winter, at some of the local favorites. Taken together, this is actually a really flavorful, really good version of an Italian sub, especially for a chain. $10, I would say, might be a little bit on the steep side, just compared to the sheer volume that you get at some of the local sub shops. But you gotta also understand you're paying for some branding here, and you're paying for convenience. One of the things that they do is delivery, and like they say, freaky fast. They can make a sub and shoot it over to you in a matter of a couple minutes. So I would say in terms of value, just it doesn't seem as worth it as like your local mom and pop sub shop. But I think for the sake of being a chain, being convenient, you know, if you're a college student and this is accessible to you, this is exactly what you would want for an Italian sub, and something that you could rely on the convenience and the consistency of. And you may think I'm the type of person that only wants to support the local mom and pop shops. I would say there is some value to that familiarity. So to that I'll say Jimmy John's, good job. $2.99 for a soda though, a little steep. If you enjoyed this, be sure to hit it with a like, and make sure you subscribe so more videos like this come up in your feed. And I have plenty of other Italian sub videos you can check out. Just click into the playlist right here. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day.